Right. The Justice and Legal Affairs Committee of the National Assembly was scheduled to table their report on the BBI bill after 7 days of public participation. That did not happen. Instead, the committee's chairperson, Kangema Member of Parliament Muturi Kigano, sought an extension for the committee to come up with a comprehensive report owing to what he termed as weighty issues raised by various groups that appeared before them. The chairperson said the committee resolved that a subcommittee of the joint committee of the bicameral houses be formed in a bid to engage experts in constitutional, legal and governance issues and advise on other emerging issues at this point. Heated debate then ensued, with the MPs sharply divided over the next course of action. This coming at a time when it is quipped that a section of members of parliament are seeking latitude to make amendments in some sections of the Constitution of Kenya Amendment Bill 2020. Now, on this episode of The Front Row, we shine a spotlight on the role of Parliament in this process and break down emerging issues for you. Remember, this would be the first time Parliament considers a proposal to amend the Constitution by way of popular initiative. Which way for the August House? We'll be seeking answers for you. I am Akisa Wandera. Thank you for joining us. Tonight, I'll be speaking to Martin Olo, who is an advocate, teacher of law and political strategist. He holds a Master's of Law and is currently completing his PhD in leadership and organizational development. Olo is also a political commentator and governance consultant. Thank you for joining us on this episode of The Front Row. We also have Jeremiah Kyon, who is a member of parliament for Ndaragwa constituency, a position he's held since 2007. He's the current chairman of the Constitutional Implementation Oversight Committee in the 12th Parliament. He holds a Bachelor of Law degree from the University of Nairobi, a diploma in law from the Kenya School of Law, a Master of Arts degree on Housing Administration from the University of Nairobi, and a Bachelor of Arts in Land Economics degree from the University of Nairobi. He's on his way here. He'll be joining us here in studio in a short while to just help us break down some of the issues on what happened in Parliament today. And I should mention there was very heated debate this afternoon in Parliament when the chairperson called or requested for an extension of time. And Jeremiah Kyon, the MP in Ndaragwa, will shortly be speaking to us about that and what really are the contentious issues among members of Parliament. But before that, how did we get here? A report on the BBI Bill 2020 that was set to be tabled before the National Assembly and the Senate today. The report by the Joint Legal Affairs Committees in the bicameral House followed 7 days of public participation, a process which concluded last week on Thursday. However, given the fact that the document cannot be amended, is public participation just a constitutional formality? Kyon senior reporter Rita Tinina explains.
The administrative unit and the political units are extremely different.
For 7 days, the Joint National Assembly and Senate Legal Affairs Committees heard from members of the public, political parties and organizations such as the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission on the Constitution of Kenya Amendment Bill 2020.
A constitutional amendment process can only therefore determine the number of constituencies but should not assign the same to respective counties, as in the case with the BBI Constitution of Kenya Amendment Bill.
And this was the second round of views after members of the public gave their submissions at the county level before county assemblies considered the bill.
A lot of people have asked a fundamental question. If Makueni has conducted public participation, Kirinyaga has conducted public participation through the assemblies, what public participation are we doing?
Public participation is a requirement under the Constitution and the Public Participation Bill 2018, which states that the responsible authority shall provide reasonable and meaningful opportunities for public participation. In determining what is reasonable, the authority shall take into consideration the nature of legislation or decision to be made, importance of the legislation or decision, and the intensity of the impact of the legislation or decision on the public.
And therefore it's important to comply with the Constitution, and we have insisted that the Constitution must be complied with, irrespective of the fact that you cannot alter a comma or a sentence or amend that document. It's important that the views of the public are put on record and become a part and parcel of this constitutional process. Being the first one after 2010 Constitution, is very important that there is a clear roadmap and there are clear processes that can be followed.
Even with the fact that not even a comma can be amended, Makueni Senator Mutula Kilonzo, who is a member of the Senate Legal Affairs Committee, says public participation is more than a constitutional formality.
People do not know that, in fact, the decision being made by both the National Assembly and Senate in terms of its membership is to agree or disagree, is informed by the reports that are going to be tabled by both committees. And therefore, the portion where we can accept or reject should be informed not by the public participation conducted in our counties, but the views that Kenyans have given.
As Parliament prepares to consider the report by the Joint Legal Affairs Committees, there are a few grey areas.
The word introducing that bill in both houses created a problem. In the parliamentary initiative, it talks about first reading, second reading. In the popular initiative, it doesn't talk about that. It says introduce. So certain things must become clear, and the Legal Affairs Committee, where we have prominent lawyers, will guide the process. What does it mean?
The spotlight now shifts to Parliament, whose decision on the Constitution of Kenya Amendment Bill 2020 will be submitted to the President by speakers of both houses. President Uhuru Kenyatta will then forward the bill to the IEBC to formulate a referendum question and conduct a plebiscite on the issues that require popular initiative. Rita Tinina, KTN News.
Remember, our guests this Martin Olo, lawyer and political analyst, as well as Jeremiah Kyon, member of Parliament in Ndaragwa, and the chairperson of the CIOC in Parliament, is on his way here. That is Jeremiah Kyon. He'll be speaking to us in a bit. Martin, thank you for joining us on the front row. The issue of public participation once again comes up in the whole conversation of the BBI process, seemingly becoming one of the most contentious issues as of now. Earlier, the parliamentarians or members of the National Assembly had a very heated debate, as I mentioned, on whether the committees deserve an extension or not. How are you looking at this?
Thank you, Akisa. Basically, what we are looking at is to also understand that our Constitution may be having some provisions that are problematic in their very nature. For example, we say that we must have public participation. But if the county assemblies have had the public participation, which then is something that we can all live with, why would again the National Assembly and Senate conduct public participation? The same thing does happen even in the various legislative arms. So the executive will conduct public participation, and then when the document is put to the legislature, they also conduct public participation. So there's a place where we need to come out very clear that Kenyans can only be consulted once, not every time and every organ. So that said, really, what I think is that Parliament is in every right, it's in its own right to do what it's doing in terms of processing this bill to put it before the Assembly. And what is critical here is that the processes, the standing orders, have to be followed in order for this document to be properly before the House and also to be properly legislated on.
Listening to some of the MPs today, those who are for an extension said there's no emergency. They should take, this particular committee should take as much time as they want in this particular process. And then there's a team that asks, this committee had time. Why did they have to take this long? What does the law say as far as that is concerned?
I don't think that they have any luxury of time. They had 7 days to do it. They should have done it in 7 days. To ask for any more time is just a delaying tactic. Now, to even say that there is no emergency is the same stuff that we've had before. When this train of BBI left the station, it was destined to the assemblies. Once the assemblies did what they needed to do in their majority as they did, the BBI bill was destined to the National Assembly. The options that the Assembly has are very few. Get out of it, review it as the Justice and Legal Affairs Committee, place it or introduce it into the Assembly. 7 days is more than enough, because what else are they expected to do? They are not expected to make any changes to it. They are not expected to inform it in any other way other than on the floor of the House.
Let's break it down to Kenyans right now. What is the definitive role of Parliament in this BBI process? Do we expect them to make any amendments in this particular report?
We do not expect Parliament to make any amendments to this report because the options they have are very simple. Either agree with the whole document or disagree with the whole document. But you can't agree here and put a comma here and so on. I'm not saying that there are no issues. There are issues. But the law is what it is. It ties their hands. So the only thing they can do is either pass the document as it is or reject it as it is, not to begin to sit down and to begin to make amendments to it.
I'll just take a look at some of the views that we got earlier on. One from the majority leader in the National Assembly, Amos Kimunya, and lawyer Charles Kanjama on what really would be the role of Parliament in this process. Let's take a look at that.
We can't have any amendments because remember, this is a bill by a popular initiative. The promoters designed their bill in a certain way. It's gone through signatures. It's gone through county assemblies in exactly the same format. So if we were to even change, if we don't agree on a certain item within the bill and hence they need to change, what happens to, do we need to take it back to the counties, right? So again, it's, and it's standard practice globally and certainly within the Commonwealth Parliament's practice that constitutional amendments, constitutional amendment bills are never changed on the floor of the House. That's why even if it was a parliamentary initiative, we would have had to expose it for 90 days before reading. And after that, yeah, you pass it as it is or reject it as it is. You don't amend constitutional bills. I know our current constitution is unclear on that item, but we have precedents. We know what happens elsewhere. And in any case, if you're amending, basically it means you don't agree. And the Constitution is clear. If you don't agree with anything, it goes to a referendum. If you agree with it, assuming it didn't have Article 255 issues that require a referendum, then the matter would have ended here. But now that it has to go for a referendum, right, even rejecting or amending still takes it to a referendum. And what has to go to referendum is the original bill as was taken through, initiated by the promoters.
The substance question is also critical. Can they amend the bill? What if there are some provisions they don't like? And this one, I think my view is slightly different. I think it would be ideal if Parliament had an opportunity to make certain minor amendments that do not change the character or do not substantially alter the content of the bill. For example, if the bill comes to them and it has editorial typographical errors, of course they can change those ones. The question is, can they remove substantive provisions which they don't like? Because definitely that bill has some good and some bad provisions. In fact, I've said the good, the bad, and the ugly. And if you investigate it, you'll find that it can do with a lot of improvement. But because this bill comes from 1 million signatures, in theory, because it has gone through county assemblies, my view is that ultimately Parliament will have to ask themselves for the substantive question, this bill, does it have more good or more bad and ugly?
Let's now bring in Daragwa Member of Parliament, Jeremiah Kyon. He's on his way here, so we'll start by just speaking to him on phone. Thank you, sir, for joining us on the front row. I don't know whether you are in Parliament, on the floor of the House this afternoon, the National Assembly. Very heated debate on whether JLAC should get an extension to review and, prepare this report or not. What are your thoughts on that?
I watched in the House this afternoon. I heard the request from the JLAC committee, and I wanted to contribute to it and say as follows, that I think the JLAC has completely misunderstood its mandate. They are looking for a way to perhaps introduce amendment to the bill, and in my view, that is not provided for. And you can actually tell from the ruling that was given by the Speaker because the Speaker did say that we are giving you 10 days, and come the 1st of April, we'll want the report, we'll want the bill only on the paper, with or without the report from the JRAC. That means that if JRAC is not careful, they will have wasted our almost 24 days.
Let you expand on that when you get to studio. I understand he's not too far away. Back to you, Martin Olo. We've had what Amos Kimunya has had to say, that really there's no room for making any changes. But there are some MPs who are pushing for latitude to make some changes, arguing that their role should not be ceremonial. What does this mean? Where does this leave that conversation?
I think that they are putting the cart after the horse, because basically what they should be saying is that had the law been changed, then it would have allowed them to make the amendments. But the law as it is cannot allow them to make amendments. So they can't be talking about wanting to amend the constitution, but at the same time wanting to amend the law that should allow them to make those amendments. So the cart and the horse here are in different places. So I think what MPs are doing, which is usual, is very our normal way of doing things, is to show what their relevance is. But if this bill was to come through Parliament, it would have had its own way in which it would have been passed. It is a popular initiative. It has come from outside Parliament. It is the popular initiative, and the people are subjected to the county assemblies. As the Constitution says, the National Assembly does not have any other role other than to say yes or no. And if they say yes, take it on. If they say no, still take it to a referendum, because it's the people who must then vote on this. It's no longer the power as to what happens to this bill is not with the National Assembly. It is with the people through the referendum.
Legal minds there saying that, you know what, Parliament has no right to make any amendments to this Constitution of Kenya Amendment Bill 2020. What do you say? You who's watching from home, we'd love to hear your thoughts. Text us on 22155. Tweet us at Akisa Wandera, at KTN News KE. We'd love to hear your thoughts and your contribution on this topic. The hashtag to use is Front Row. We still have a lot more lined up for you. Do stay with us. Let's take a quick break.
This is KTN News.